Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Pete Hegseth. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, accompanied by the Second Lady of the United States, Usha Vance, and their 3 children. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, and First Lady Melania Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, to honor America, would you please rise for the singing of our national anthem?
Can you see why the Before we even had a country, we had an army.
They started as a small, unorganized group of shop owners and farmers, but they fought the most powerful army in the entire world to a standstill in Concord, Lexington, and Bunker Hill.
Then our Continental Congress chose George Washington as general of our Continental Army.
But it wasn't until 1 year later, on July 4th, 1776, that news arrived of the signing of our Declaration of Independence.
Now we had a new army and a new nation.
With little gunpowder, no shoes, bloody feet, few cannons, little training, and even less food.
Valley Forge started in December. They went into winter camp in December of 1777. Approximately 2,000 Americans died that winter of disease.
They lived through hell, but they never ever gave up. Not this army, not this first American army.
Finally, Washington and his army arrived here at Yorktown, where they had General Cornwallis and his powerful British army trapped in this city against the sea.
All of the preparation that Washington has learned through the course of those 6.5 years meets its full force here at Yorktown, and he employs it brilliantly.
Sailing from the Caribbean, the French Navy arrived and took on the British fleet.
Washington decided to make his move. Our men began digging to get closer and closer to the fort, finally getting within rifle and cannon range. Naturally, George Washington chose to set off our first cannon shot.
The British had two small forts in front of the main fort. They were called redoubts 9 and 10.
Then, on the moonless night of October 14th, the American and French forces attacked the redoubts. The hand-to-hand combat with bayonets, knives, and fists was bloody, to say the least. But within an hour, we were victorious.
And as the sun came up the next day, Cornwallis looked out and realized he was in serious trouble. So he prepared an all-out, desperate counterattack.
It didn't work, and the British were forced to surrender.
We were supposed to lose to the best army and the largest and most professional navy in the world.
But our young army had won the war and our freedom. The freedom we hold so dear. And 250 years later, for what started as a ragtag group of shop owners, has now become the most powerful army in the world.
Today, many things are very different from that army here at Yorktown. But one thing remains the same. An undying passion, guts, and love for our country remains deep in the heart of today's army. When I look into their faces, you can see it. That will never change. God bless the United States Army, and God bless the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, our parade is officially underway. Up first, internationally renowned as one of the world's finest professional music organizations, the United States Army Band, Pershing Zone. They are the premier music organization of the U.S. Army, our nation's most senior service. Stationed at Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall, Virginia, it plays an important musical role in events of national and international significance. They were founded back in 1922 by Army Chief of Staff John J. Pershing. They're led today by Colonel Bruce R. Pulver and Drum Major Rob Moore. Today, Pershing Zone is playing a melody entitled "The Army Goes Rolling Along." This was actually written in 1908 by the then Lieutenant Edmund Louis Snitz Gruber, which was a descendant of Franz Gruber, who composed Silent Night. It was originally written to be the 5th Artillery Regimental song titled "The Caissons Go Rolling Along," and in 1956 the lyrics were revised by Harold Arberg as the official song of the U.S. Army, and then retitled "The Army Goes Rolling Along." Pershing Zone carries on its century-old legacy, playing a march that brings pride to every soldier, the Army Song. The 3rd Infantry Regiment is the oldest active duty unit in the U.S. Army. Established back in 1784, the unit was dubbed the Old Guard by Major General Winfield Scott during a victory parade in Mexico City after the Mexican War. It is the U.S. Army's official ceremonial unit and presidential escort, conducting year-round tactical training to ensure the highest standards and utmost discipline of its soldiers. The unit routinely represents the U.S. Army and our nation at official ceremonies, major sporting events, and their own, the U.S. Army's own Twilight Tattoo. The Old Guard also maintains 24-hour vigil of the tomb of the unknown soldier, while also conducting funeral services honoring our fallen heroes in Arlington National Cemetery. The regiment's 50 campaign streamer stand is a testament to its long, faithful service to our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. In 1775, the shot heard round the world at Lexington and Concord sparked a revolution, uniting 13 colonies and forging a continental army from farmers and frontiersmen. Against the odds, they turned the tide at Trenton and Saratoga, survived Valley Forge, and at Yorktown forced a British surrender, securing independence and giving birth to the United States of America. Before radios and field phones, sound was the signal. In the Continental Army, fifes and drums carried commands across the chaos of battle, telling soldiers when to advance, when to retreat, eat, even when to rest. That legacy actually lives on today with the U.S. Army Fife and Drum Corps, part of the 3rd Infantry Regiment known as the Old Guard. Founded back in 1960, they're the only unit of their kind in the armed forces. Performing in uniforms patterned after those worn by General Washington's musicians. Playing period instruments with patriotic precision, they bring history to life, sharing the sound and spirit of the Revolution through more than 500 performances each year, both at home and around the world, too. The Old Guard, Fife and Drum Corps, everybody. And now, from high above, ladies and gentlemen, celebrating 250 years, your United States Army parachute team, the Golden Knights. Descending at over 120 miles an hour, the Golden Knights are using flexible wing gliders to maintain their formation. They open their main canopy simultaneously and negotiate the softest possible landing. I'll tell you, they can't hear you, but they sure can see you. You can give them a great big wave, ladies and gentlemen, the Golden Knights, the finest parachuting team in the world. Fort Sumter in 1861, a nation divided. Over 4 brutal years, nearly 2 million soldiers fought to preserve the Union. Among them, 5 future presidents and the first recipients of a brand new military decoration, the Medal of Honor. With independence won, our nation's westward expansion began. The Army moved in step, guarding settlers as Native Scouts lit the way. Immigrants joined the cause, and the Buffalo Soldiers etched a legacy of grit and honor across the American frontier. As they march by, a soldier's uniform signals their duty, their role, and their readiness. And by the late 1850s, official regulations outlined distinct looks, shaping the Army's identity and function across the force. Soldiers were issued 2 coats. One, a short sack coat for work and battle, with brass buttons and colored trim that marked their rank. Well, by war's end, that rugged sack coat became the soldier's uniform of choice. As the war escalated, volunteer enlistment surged. Congress authorized support for a force of up to 500,000 new troops, answering the call to preserve the Union. As they march by, representing the Civil War era of our nation's history, is the 4th Infantry Division based out of Fort Carson, Colorado. From Fort Cavazos, Texas, home of legends, the 1st Cavalry Division rides with pride. Born from the thunder of horse cavalry traditions of the Civil War, the 1st team forged its reputation on the front lines of history. They stormed Manila with the flying column, charged into Pyongyang as the first to breach the line and face the brutal crucible of Ia Drang, the first of 13 named campaigns in Vietnam where they proved their mettle. Today, that same warrior spirit lives on. You'll know the name, and you'll know them by their iconic cap hats, elite soldiers, and cutting-edge equipment. Tough, fit, fearless. The 1st Cavalry Division is a lethal, disciplined force that stands ready to fight and win anywhere, anytime, and the legacy rides on. This is the CAV. Special thanks to our sponsor, Lockheed Martin. In 1914, years of escalating competition between European alliances culminate in the outbreak of the First World War. The 2 sides engage in the savage war of attrition, defined by opposing trenches, barbed wire, poison gas, and mass casualties. The United States initially maintained its neutrality, but was eventually drawn into the conflict in 1917. Despite having less than 130,000 soldiers at the beginning, the Army eventually grew to over 4 million, with nearly 2 million soldiers serving in Europe. In 6 months of fighting, nearly 50,000 Americans lost their lives, with another 190,000 wounded. The guns fell silent with the armistice of November 11th, 1918. We continue on with more USA World War I rolling stock. This 1918 Dodge touring car was part of the legendary 1919 Transcontinental Convoy. 3,251 miles and 62 grueling days across the Lincoln Highway. Now remember, no pavement, no GPS, and no power steering. Just grit, determination, and the drive to push Army mobility into the future. This car literally helped pave the way for the roads we rely on today, and reminds us when the Army moves, the nation follows. The 1918 Dodge touring car. Headquartered in New York, this is the 42nd Infantry Division Band. At the start of World War I, the 42nd Infantry Division was formed with troops from 27 National Guard units, stretching across the country like a rainbow. Composed of skilled musicians from all walks of life and professional occupations, they perform a variety of musical genres. Though their mission is primarily a musical one, the members were ordered into active federal service back in 2004 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 3. The band has also served in support of numerous state active duty missions, including cleanup efforts following Hurricane Sandy, distribution support during COVID-19, and recently, support for New York State Corrections. Commanded by Chief Warrant Officer 2 Ethan Wagner and led by Drum Major Sergeant First Class Drew Gans, the band is performing Over There, written in 1917 by Broadway composer and recipient of the Congressional Gold Medal George M. Cohan. Representing the World War I era is the 82nd Airborne Division, based out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You'll notice the unit is wearing replica World War I uniforms signifying the soldiers who served our nation during this time. When the Americans entered the Great War, our soldiers, under the command of General Blackjack Pershing, hit the trenches in the new standard. It was the olive drab winter service uniform. Now on their heads you'll see a steel helmet with sand-textured paint built to deflect deadly shrapnel from above. Not bulletproof, but battle tough. Nicknamed the Pershing boot, on their feet was the M918, 1918 French boot. It was designed to survive the brutal grind of trench warfare. And on their backs, the field pack, rations, ammo, first aid, and a gas mask. Everything a doughboy needed to fight and to win. Incidentally, the 42nd Infantry Division was deployed to heavy combat abroad and then deployed again in World War II, ultimately liberating the Dachau concentration camp. The 42nd responded to the terrorist attacks on 9/11. Later, with the war on terrorism, the rainbow stretched across the world again, deploying in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thundering into view, the pride of Fort Sill, the U.S. Army Artillery Half Section. This is literally powered by horsepower and heritage. This elite ceremonial unit honors the legacy of the Army's horse-drawn artillery. With precision, discipline, and 6 majestic horses pulling a vintage 1918 caisson, the half section keeps tradition alive and rolling strong. Representing the power, pride, and precision of America's field artillery, this is Fort Sill's finest, ladies and gentlemen. Special thanks to our sponsor, Form Energy. World War II, a global fight for freedom. In history's darkest hour, the United States Army was on the front lines. From the beaches of Normandy to the islands of the Pacific, the greatest generation faced down tyranny and turned the tide. From bombers to fighters to transports, U.S. Army aircraft started to thunder across the skies in World War II. And take a look up there, ladies and gentlemen. Flying overhead right now. They are fast, they are fierce, and famously used in the Doolittle raid over Tokyo. Leading up front, the mighty B-25 Mitchell. Up next, the Cadillac of the sky, the P-51 Mustang. From the sky, we're back down on the ground. In World War II, one vehicle led the charge, the legendary quarter-ton 4x4 command recon vehicle, the Jeep. You might have a Jeep in your driveway, but not like this. The U.S. Army truck quarter-ton 4x4 command reconnaissance, better known as the Jeep, was an iconic vehicle of World War II and was the world's first mass-produced four-wheel drive vehicle. The Army used the Jeep for almost every military activity, including command vehicles, scout cars, and medical ambulances. Fast, rugged, the Jeep became a symbol of American ingenuity. From Fort Bragg, North Carolina, this is the 82nd Airborne Ceremonial Band. The 82nd received the nickname All-Americans after a contest as it represented the diverse origins of its members from every state. This name remains today symbolized by their iconic AA patch. Fort Bragg's finest, ladies and gentlemen. Give them a big round of applause, the 82nd Airborne Ceremonial Band. In a global fight like World War II, the U.S. Army knew our troops needed more than courage. They needed innovation. Uniforms evolved for every environment, but olive drab remained the mark of the American soldier. Shaped by lessons from the trenches of World War I, the Army introduced two battlefield essentials: the M1 helmet, tough, stable, and built to protect under fire, and the M1 Garand rifle, powerful and fast, and gave American troops a very clear edge. General George S. Patton called the M1 rifle the greatest battle implement ever designed, and history proved him right. The 82nd Airborne Division. The unit is best known for their bravery on D-Day, when 12,000 parachute and glider troops destroyed German supply lines after fighting for 33 days straight. The 101st Airborne Division, based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, traces its lineage back to 1918, when it first established as the 101st Division. Known for across the world, the unit has held a crucial role in operations since its inception. From parachuting behind enemy lines on D-Day to leading helicopter assaults in Vietnam, the 101st redefined modern warfare. In the 50s, the Screaming Eagles stood tall at home, protecting the Little Rock Nine during the fight for civil rights. In recent decades, they've been sent across the world with stints as far as the Middle East, where they took part in Operation Desert Storm and participated extensively in the war on terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Screaming Eagles continue to lead the way as tomorrow's division in today's Army. The iconic Sherman tank is here, ladies and gentlemen. It was the cornerstone of the U.S. Armed Forces, showing its military might in World War II. It became one of the most influential tank designs of the 20th century. The M4 tank was nicknamed the Sherman tank after Civil War General William Tecumseh Sherman. Actually, it was named by the British. With almost 50,000 produced during World War II, the Sherman tank was in active service until 1957. In World War II, the M16 half-track was a force to be reckoned with. It was a self-propelled anti-aircraft weapon with speed, firepower, and grit. Nicknamed the Meat Chopper, its quad 50 caliber mount could unleash 2,300 rounds a minute. Quite devastating. It served through Korea, Vietnam, and beyond, and remains in use in U.S. allies to this day. The M16 half-track brings the fight wherever it rolls. The U.S. Army Transportation Corps motto states, "Nothing happens until something moves." That was never more true than with this. Look at this, the 2.5-ton Chevrolet Deuce and a half. It can move up to 10,000 pounds of cargo and was the backbone of the Red Ball Express that kept the Allies supplied after D-Day in World War II. The Korean War, often referred to as the Forgotten War, began on June 25, 1950, with the North Korean Army's invasion of South Korea. A coalition of South Korea, the United States, and other United Nations members defeated the invasion and advanced into North Korea. The coalition fought and defeated 2 Chinese offensives in the spring of 1951. Armistice negotiations began shortly after that defeat in July of 1951 until the armistice was signed 2 years later in 1953. Combat consisted of small attacks, raids, and patrolling. During this war, the United States deployed approximately 6.8 million military forces to the Korean Peninsula. Special thanks to our sponsor, Coinbase. The M151 kept rolling along as the lightweight, high-mobility general-purpose vehicle replacing the famed World War II Jeep back in 1961. Officially named the Military Utility Tactical Truck, or MUT, most servicemen generally referred to it as a Jeep. The vehicle spanned more than 40 years in 4 manufacturers and were everywhere that the Army was deployed. Another rolled by earlier, and at 2.5 tons, this Deuce and a half, the M35A2 classic military transport truck, was a mainstay of the U.S. Army for decades, particularly during the Vietnam War and Operation Iraqi Freedom. The Deuce and a half proved its value moving cargo, supplies, and soldiers. Its capabilities include up to 5,000 pounds off-road and 10,000 pounds on-road, making it ideal for moving just about anything. In the jungles of Vietnam, the U.S. Army faced a new kind of war. Helicopters became the new workhorses of battle, delivering troops, firepower, and supplies into some of the most unforgiving terrain on Earth. This is the U.S. Army in Vietnam, the era of air mobility, fierce firefights, and unwavering brotherhood. And over the music marching through, the roar of these legendary Army helicopters takes to the air. Flying overhead right now, they help define the Vietnam War. That staccato beat of the rotor blades was a welcome sound to many troops mired in combat. From transport and medevac to close air support and reconnaissance, they brought the fight to the front and pulled the wounded to safety. The OH-6 Cayuse scouted the terrain with unmatched agility. The AH-1 Cobra, also nicknamed the Snake, brought serious firepower. Its slim design, as you can see here, helped it survive and thrive in hostile environments to protect soldiers below. And the icon of the era, the UH-1 Huey, the first turbine-powered helicopter in service with the U.S. military. There was nothing the Huey couldn't do. General support, air assault, cargo transport, medic evacuation, and ground attack missions. The Cayuse, Cobra, and Huey, ladies and gentlemen, three iconic Army symbols in the sky. The 1st Cavalry Division Band, based out of Fort Cavazos, Texas, has played a vital role in U.S. military history. Since its origins back in 1855 as the band of the 2nd Cavalry, it has supported operations from the Civil War to Desert Storm. Over time, it's evolved into a powerful force using music to strengthen bonds between soldiers and engage with communities. From World War II in Korea to the Vietnam War in Bosnia, the 1st Teen Band has enhanced morale and upheld the division's enduring legacy. Today, the band continues its mission using music to shape perceptions, foster trust, and promote national Army and division interests. Standing ready to serve, it remains an enduring symbol of the 1st Cavalry Division's legacy and commitment to duty. The band performs Hit the Leather and Ride on march composed by Captain Robert Meredith Wilson. This piece reflects the cavalry's transition from horses to mechanized warfare, capturing the speed, the resilience, and the tradition of the division. From Fort Cavazos, Texas, everybody, the 1st Cavalry Division Band. The U.S. Army deployed large numbers of troops in support of the Vietnam War. The first contingent of U.S. Army advisors arrived in Vietnam in the late 1950s, and that quickly grew to a small team of around 100 soldiers, which then expanded to more than 600 over the next decade. As the war intensified, troops' numbers quickly grew as the war between the South Vietnamese government and the communist insurgents supported by North Vietnam intensified. By January 1969, more than 364,200 soldiers organized around 7 divisions and 20 separate combat brigades. The United States began withdrawing its forces in July of 1969, and the last Army combat unit left South Vietnam in August of '71. The last U.S. combat soldier came home March 1973, while a small number of non-combat personnel remained until April 1975. Representing the Vietnam War era is the 101st Airborne Division based out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The unit is wearing replica Vietnam War uniforms signifying the soldiers who served our nation during this time. Blistering heat, thick humidity, and unforgiving terrain demanded uniform innovation. And the Army, they delivered. New lightweight uniforms were constructed to move with the soldier. The M16 replaced the M1 Garand, calling for redesigned ammo gear and faster reloads in combat. Body armor got smarter, jackets and trousers got lighter, and field equipment was reimagined to meet the mission head-on. Gone were the heavy Mickey Mouse boots, replaced by canvas tropical combat boots that offered better grip, faster drying, and all-day endurance. Special thanks to our sponsor, Oracle. When Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Kuwait in August 1990, the U.S. Army deployed to Saudi Arabia to deter and further Iraqi aggression in the region for what was known as Operation Desert Shield. By the fall, more than 750,000 troops comprising U.S. service members and coalition partners from more than 30 countries had assembled in the Saudi Arabian desert. In mid-January 1991, the U.S.-led coalition began Operation Desert Storm, which kicked off with an intensive air campaign designed to knock out key Iraqi infrastructure and weaken Iraqi forces. The ground offensive was launched in early 1991, where military forces overwhelmingly destroyed enemy tanks and vehicles. After only 100 hours of ground combat, coalition troops liberated Kuwait, and the Gulf War ended with Iraq's surrender. From Fort Riley, Kansas, this is the 1st Infantry Division, one of the Army's most storied divisions. Nicknamed the Big Red One because of the distinctive red on their unit patch, as the oldest continuously serving division in the U.S. Army, the unit has participated in every major operation since World War I, living up to its motto, no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. The 1st Infantry Division was originally established as the 1st Expeditionary Division in 1917 and spearheaded the American Expeditionary Forces in France during World War I. In World War II, the Fighting First stormed Omaha Beach on D-Day and liberated Nazi concentration camps. The highly decorated unit has had 37 members of the Big Red One awarded the Medal of Honor. In Washington, D.C., the 1st Division Monument stands in President's Park, memorializing those who died while serving in the 1st Infantry Division. Ladies and gentlemen, they are the Big Red One, the 1st Infantry Division. More military rolling stock. During Operation Desert Storm, the M2 Bradley fighting vehicle proved its value on the battlefield. It is fast, it is tough, and it is lethal. Named for General Omar Bradley, a leader from West Point's famed class of 1916, the Bradley was built to carry troops into combat with protection and power. Armed with a 25mm chain-driven cannon and twin-tube launched optically tagged wire-guided missiles, it played a critical role in clearing the way during the ground assault into Iraq. While the Paladin looks and sounds like a tank, it is technically a self-propelled howitzer that was first introduced back in the 1960s. Over the years, it's been upgraded to perform in versatile battlefields from Vietnam to the Soviet Union to Iraq. In the Gulf War, no division hit harder or moved faster than the 1st Armored. The 1st Armored Division, nicknamed Old Ironsides, is the oldest, most recognizable armored division in the United States Army. As part of the buildup for World War II, cavalry and reconnaissance units were brought together to form the 1st Armored Division in 1940. In the Gulf War, no division hit harder or moved faster than the 1st Armored. Old Ironsides really led the way. During Desert Storm, they engaged in some of the largest tank battles in Army history that were decisive victories, shattering enemy formations. Based in Fort Bliss, Texas, America's Tank Division is currently supporting missions in 20 countries across 5 continents. From World War II to today, Old Ironsides remains battle-proven and always ready. First used in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, the M119 howitzer brought precision firepower to the front lines. Lighter and more mobile than larger artillery, it was built for the infantry brigade, able to fire high into the air or directly at the target depending on the mission. Whether used in battery formation or as a standalone support weapon, the M119 delivered reliable, responsible fire when it mattered most. Still in service today, including on the front lines in Ukraine, it remains a trusted part of the Army's arsenal. Special thanks to our sponsor, UFC. September 11, 2001, terrorists destroyed the World Trade Center in New York City and struck the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. using commercial airliners. In response, the U.S. launched the global war on terrorism. The U.S. would stop potential threats around the world and take the fight to terrorist groups and the nations that backed them. The Army immediately deployed forces to Afghanistan to destroy Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda terrorist organization and depose his sponsors, the ruling Taliban. The 2003 President Bush expanded the war to Iraq. Soldiers and other armed services overthrew Iraq's dictator Saddam Hussein. The fight to stabilize Iraq and prevent terrorist groups from overthrowing its new government continues to this day. The campaign in Afghanistan lasted until 2021 when U.S. forces withdrew and the Taliban returned to power. Over the course of the two-decade conflict, over 2 million servicemen and women, less than 1% of the American population, deployed in support of the global war on terrorism. Most of those who served were members of the United States Army. The 8-wheeled Stryker Armored Combat Vehicle is the first military vehicle to enter service in the U.S. Army since the Abrams tank back in the 1980s. The vehicle was developed to fill a gap in the Army's inventory between a lighter infantry and heavy armored unit. The Stryker Armored Combat Vehicle enables the team to maneuver in close and urban terrain, plus provide protection in open terrain, and transport infantry quickly to critical battlefield positions. The first Stryker vehicles were fielded back in 2002 with the first Stryker Brigade combat team deploying to Iraq in 2003. U.S. Army Rangers, predating the Revolutionary War, fought in the War of 1812 as part of the regular Army and patrolled the frontier from Ohio to western Illinois on horseback and by boat, with the likes of Daniel Boone and Abraham Lincoln in their ranks. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks, Rangers were called upon to lead the way in the global war on terrorism. As part of the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, the 75th Ranger Regiment, based out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, represents a lethal, agile, and flexible force capable of conducting many complex joint special operations missions. Today's Rangers Regiment is the Army's premier direct action raid force. It is always combat ready, mentally and physically tough, and prepared to fight our country's adversaries. The U.S. Army Special Operations Command is an elite group of individuals trained to lead and succeed in protecting the country from their threats. Composed of 5 units with unique specialties, Special Operations works in small tactical teams, taking on the most challenging and sensitive missions. Military legends to service members and civilians alike, they take on terrorists through quiet guerrilla war-style missions in foreign countries. Ladies and gentlemen, the U.S. Army Special Forces. With survivability and tactical mobility. Adaptability and continuous transformation to overcome our enemies is vital. Fighting an elusive enemy in distant places and at home requires new tools such as unmanned aerial vehicles for surveillance and the Blue Force tracker to see real-time details of troop movements. The United States does not face the challenging international environment alone. Our network of allies and partners is an advantage that our adversaries can never hope to match. Over 80 nations have fought alongside the United States or assisted in during the global war on terrorism. Division's climb to glory began with its establishment as the 10th Light Division in July 1943. the only one of its size in the U.S. military to receive specialized training for fighting in mountainous conditions. After periods spent inactive as a training division and as a standard infantry division, the unit returned to its roots in 1985 when it regained its Mountain Division designation. In the 1990s, the division participated in numerous humanitarian and peacekeeping operations. During the war on terrorism, the 10th Mountain Division proved their mettle as light fighters through repeated deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. Now, since 2002, the 10th Mountain Division, based out of Fort Drum, New York, has been the most deployed regular Army unit. Its combat brigades have seen over 20 deployments to both Iraq and Afghanistan in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. To show America's military might, they have one purpose: to deter war and, if ordered, defeat the enemies of the United States of America. They are the 10th Mountain Division. Investments in cutting-edge systems, drone technology, and AI-powered capabilities strengthen the force, equipping soldiers with tools they need to protect the country and defend democracy. The Army has 8 Stryker Brigade combat teams, 6 in the active component and 2 in the National Guard. More than 2/3 of the 7,000 servicemen and women who sacrificed their lives fighting the global war on terrorism were part of one of the Army's 3 branches: active duty forces, the Army Reserve, and the Army National Guard. The Army is continuously transforming to deter aggression to ensure our adversaries cannot outrange or outpace us. This transformation is not just about adapting, it's about maintaining dominance, ensuring that America's Army remains unmatched in its speed, flexibility, and ability to support the nation's strategic priorities. Today, the U.S. Army's mission is to deploy, fight, and win our nation's wars. How? By securing ready, prompt, and sustained land dominance by Army forces across the full spectrum of the conflict as part of the joint force. Keeping the Army forces battle-ready and nimble makes transportation for the U.S. Army a very vital element. Spread across the parade today, numerous fighting vehicles, some designed for very specific functions and others for flexibility, but they all must be maintained. With over 200,000 trucks alone, wheeled vehicle mechanisms ensure that the fleet of vehicles are ready. And these mechanics get the job done. This convoy starts with the M777, a lightweight howitzer. These lightweight howitzers may not look particularly lightweight, but are made from titanium. They are 7,000 pounds lighter than their predecessor, the old M198. Used by the Army since 2005, the M777 is currently being used in Ukraine. Weighing only 4,700 pounds, the M119 howitzer is smaller. It is used by infantry brigades, particularly for air assault missions. It was first used in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm in 1991. It is also seeing active use in Ukraine. The 7th Infantry Division stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord has been seeing continuous combat action ever since activation in World War I. From Europe to the Aleutian Islands, Japan, Korea, Afghanistan, and the Pacific, the Bayonet Division boasts a proud history of answering the call of its motto, "Trust in Me," with resolute dedication. Sent to deployments and conflicts around the globe since it was founded, the division returned to Fort Lewis in 1971, its first time on American soil since 1934. The 7th Division, originally called the Hourglass Division due to their patch design, gained the nickname Bayonet Division during their deployment to Korea in June of 1950. At Incheon Landing during the liberation of Seoul, they were credited with plunging the bayonet into the heart of the enemy, with 13 members of the division receiving the Medal of Honor. The 7th enables and sustains the combat readiness of 2 Stryker Brigade combat teams and a Combat Aviation Brigade. With the American soldier, the cornerstone of everything the Army does, we are continuously transforming. Army careers span the spectrum from attorneys to astronauts and mechanics to engineers. The Army's greatest asset is our people, the finest men and women our great nation has to offer, with a myriad of talents that make us stronger. Aside from its people, the Army's next greatest asset is its technology and equipment. Coming up next, these vehicles offer a glimpse of what the Army employs for readiness and battle. The portable howitzers and the portable Abrams tank were used extensively in the Gulf War, along with Bradley tanks and the infantry squad vehicle. The ISB provides enhanced tactical mobility of an infantry brigade combat team. This allows commanders greater freedom of movement and action. The ISB provides the warfighter with increased flexibility to ensure infantry units maintain momentum to achieve mission success. When duty calls, U.S. Army soldiers don't just answer, they lead. From Fort Bragg, witness a powerful demonstration of strength, purpose, and the unmatched capability of today's Army.
The Army has made me see my potential, and I feel like it's molded me into a better person.
I grew up in a very patriotic household. My grandfather, he served in World War II, and his brother, my uncle, served in Vietnam. I can do this. If they can do this, I can do this.
When I was born, my dad was still serving in the military, and him coming home in this uniform, I'm like, yeah, I want to do that.
Clear for takeoff. My motivation, I think it follows in line. I think with what my family's done is kind of a sense of duty to serve our country and give back since it's given us so much.
I'm a very, let's say, timid person, but definitely helped me become a more confident person.
Working with a group and my peers, it really shows how much working with a team can strengthen you.
All right, ready to go? I drive a lot of purpose from serving others. I think serving something bigger than myself gets me out of bed every day. If you follow it up, you follow it up.
I definitely pushed myself further than I ever thought I could go.
I joined the military service because I want to deploy. That's my main goal, is deploy, deploy, deploy.
If we get the call, we have to go somewhere, we'll do what needs to be done. That's just the way we operate here.
This is one of the few jobs in the nation where we all take an oath to say, I'm willing to put my life on the line for you, and they're willing to put their life on the line for me.
This is what we train for. This is what I want to do. My team leaders and squad leaders, they know exactly what to do. Check equipment, check weapons, check ammo.
We're always ready to deploy within 18 hours and handle the mission at task. We jump so frequently so that our jump masters and paratroopers are ready to deploy.
I'm very passionate about being a drum master. Paratroopers, they see you and, they believe in you. I love to instill that confidence with my passion into those paratroopers. It's a rush. It's great.
Drop in clear for personnel drop.
This week we honor 250 years of valor and glory and triumph by the greatest fighting force ever to walk the face of the earth, the United States Army. For 2.5 centuries, our soldiers have marched into the raging fires of battle and obliterated America's enemies.
I love the Army. It is a great place to set yourself up for success, to prepare yourself for the future.
God bless you, God bless our soldiers, and God bless the U.S. Army.
Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, Alaska is the home to America's Arctic Angels, who execute expeditionary operations worldwide, conduct multi-domain operations in the Indo-Pacific Theater and the Arctic, and on order decisively defeat any adversary in extreme cold weather, mountainous and high latitude environments, through large-scale combat operations. The Angels are the Army's only Arctic division. Masters of Arctic warfare, the 11th serves worldwide in all climates. Established in November of 1942, the Angels of the 11th Airborne Division led the way in the Philippines during World War II and spearheaded an amphibious invasion of Luzon and distinguished themselves during the liberation of Manila. After periods spent inactive and stationed in Germany from 1963 to 65, the division operated as the 11th Air Assault Division with the mission of testing and refining the Army's helicopter-centric air mobility doctrine. Activated once again in June of 2022, they remain dedicated to defending America's interests throughout the Arctic, in Alaska, and beyond. The 11th Airborne Division, America's Arctic Angels. Requiring ongoing maintenance in the field and on base because nothing happens until something moves, wheeled vehicle mechanics supervise and perform maintenance, repair, and recovery operations on vehicles that serve the Army in a variety of mission-critical roles. Included in the array of mobile artillery such as Paladins and the Abrams tank is the Joint Light Tactical Vehicle known as the JLTV. It's highly adaptable, providing protected and sustained mobility for personnel and payloads. The JLTV is known for its off-road capability while providing armor against small arms and improvised explosive devices. The JLTV right there. The U.S. Army Reserve is inseparably linked to America's long-standing citizen-soldier tradition. Organizationally, the Reserve's roots lie in the Medical Reserve Corps, established back in 1908 to provide a ready reserve of medical manpower. This organization was folded into the new offices of the Officers Reserve Corps in 1917. Reserve organizations furnish crucial manpower to the Army during World War I and were merged in 1920 into the Organization of Organized Reserve. During World War II, the Army activated 26 Organized Reserve infantry divisions, and roughly a quarter of the Army's officer corps came from the reserve during the conflict. During the Korean War, the Organized Reserve Corps was reorganized and redesignated the U.S. Army Reserve. The Army Reserve has since served as a vital source of manpower for the force during times of need, gradually transitioning from a strategic force to an operational force in response to the pressures of the war on terrorism. In the 170,000 Army Reserve soldiers and 11,000 civilians serving their home communities, and when needed, they can quickly mobilize. The Army can't deploy, they can't fight or win without the Army Reserve. They are an important component of Army readiness. Let's have a big hand for the Army Reserve. Survivability, efficiency, and streamlined processes. The Stryker is a great example of assessing evolving needs and developing the solution. Strykers provide a balance between heavy armor and infantry brigade and combat teams. When Americans hear the name Bastogne, they remember one of World War II's most heroic defenses, the Battle of the Bulge. Surrounded by German forces in the frozen forests of Belgium in December 1944, soldiers of the 101st Airborne held the line. Multi-Purpose Company, 2nd Battalion, 327th Infantry Regiment, 1st Mobile Brigade, 101st Airborne Division, Bastogne. They are showcasing the Army's Transformation in Contact Initiative, a program that allows the Army to rapidly test, evaluate, and equip our soldiers with the newest technologies. Modern, mobile, and mission-ready, the Bastogne Brigade continues to adapt to new threats while staying rooted in the fierce resilience that defined its birth. They are carrying the next-generation squad weapons, the XM7 and XM250, both equipped with the XM157 optic. The vehicles are the infantry squad vehicle, a new mobility asset that can rapidly move through most terrain types. The trailer is the S-MET, and it's capable of carrying heavy loads under its own power through restrictive terrain. This platoon is equipped with 3 types of small unmanned aerial systems. They are the Ghost X, located on the S-MET, the C-100, and right above us there, the X-10D, which are flying above the formation right now. Fighting vehicle has proved itself to be lethal and survivable in multiple theaters since it first fielded back in the 1980s. Designed as a troop transport tank killer and to match speed with an Abrams tank, the Bradley is a fierce fighting machine. Bradley accompanies American troops often with the M1A1 Abrams tank, nicknamed the Beast and Whispering Death because of its firepower, accuracy while moving, and its stealth. Together, they offer mobility and firepower, a fearsome combination. high in the sky, the AH-64 Apache. It's the premier attack helicopter in the world. The Apache entered service in the mid-1980s and continues to evolve and modify to meet worldwide threats. It can deliver intense fire on the battlefield with an array of aerial rockets, guided Hellfire missiles, along with 30-millimeter cannon fire. The aircraft you see here is configured with a sophisticated targeting radar system and can operate in poor visibility and in the black of night. With more than 1,280 aircraft in operation accumulating over 5 million flight hours, 1.3 million of which have been in combat, the AH-64 Apache represents the backbone of the U.S. Army's attack helicopter fleet and a growing number of international defense forces. Special thanks to our sponsor, Lockheed Martin. Now, let's roll on to the future of Army readiness. The Army Research Laboratory robot dogs reflect the latest in Army innovation. Look at this. Much like a true canine, these robots can go where soldiers cannot. They have increased mobility, improved tactical awareness, reduced risk to soldiers, and enhanced teamwork. Replacing soldiers, robot dogs can explore terrain that may be difficult for soldiers to traverse. Dispose of